Hey everyone, how's it going? Got some good news for you.
As I'm scripting this video, it seems to be very long, hence I'll jump straight onto the guide. Thanks for the support as usual.
Orisa's primary fire, spam. Makes Orisa shoot projectiles at 720 rounds a minute, dealing 11 damage per projectile. The gun has 150 ammo with a lengthy reload of over 2.5 seconds, also granting Orisa a 30% movement penalty. Whilst there's not much in terms of tech or aim technique, apart from you being able to cancel your reload with melee in case you accidentally reload, I want to focus on Orisa's movement and her target priority. Starting off with the latter, contrary to what the pinned Orisa subreddit guide states, you don't want to be focusing squishy targets. Your weapon is too unpredictable and hard to consistently aim with. Hence the only time squishes should be your priority is if they are static, which may be due to hold. Other than that, spam shields and tanks to gain ult charge and to decrease enemy team cover. Moving on to movement patterns. Here's Mineral explaining why it is vital to mirror the opposing ball movement.
No. You can see this ball coming at you, but you don't react. As soon as you see him rolling towards you, you are already mirroring his movement and moving around a corner. Because now you get slammed and you almost die. You get saved by the
immortality,
yeah. And this is what we talked about, right? Like, you don't want to get slammed because it exposes your hitbox and you might die.
Lastly, when you are being pressured to retreat, consider these factors as Jayne goes on to further explain here.
So you move 5.5 meters per second forward and 5 meters per second backwards. And on top of that, you've got your critical hitbox to worry about. And on top of that, if you're shooting, your movement speed is reduced. So you have to figure out whether you're doing a fighting retreat, so you're walking backwards while shooting, whether you are retreating and like fortifying, or do you turn around and get the full 5.5 meters per second so that you can reposition farther away faster.
Orisa's first ability, the Yoink, makes Orisa launch a graviton charge, pulling enemies to the center from a 7.5 meter radius. The movement speed both moving and pulling is 20 meters per second, with a 0.65 second snare and 8 second cooldown. Firstly, your hold cancels your reload animation if you run out of ammo, meaning that the reload can be up to 5 seconds long. Make sure you reload before you hold to prevent this, and to follow up on your holds. Secondly, you can hold to buy time. This is mainly used against Reinhardt comps to keep the distance to help break the shield. The extra time could be used for your damage dealers to load in an extra clip, or for your team to get the extra remaining points of ult charge. Thirdly, use it to pull enemies out of cover. This is most useful against targets without any cooldowns to help finish the kill. Fourthly, the most team-reliant use is to combo with your teammates' cooldowns. Most obviously, this is pull flux or pull accretion with Sigma, but you can also do pull bleed, pull fire strike, and much more. Fifthly, building on the last point, call out your pull to be able to combo efficiently. There is 3 components to this. Communicate your cooldown, location, and target of your ult, as you can see with the examples on your screen. For the 6th tip, try not to hold too high or too low.
You also don't want to pull too low or they will get caught on the edge, or too high and they will have time to reach back on the edge while they are falling. I like to put it either directly horizontal or a little slightly lower in order to ensure the kill.
For the 7th tip, you can use ult defensively to punish mobile dive characters that have misused their cooldowns, as Mineral further elaborates here.
Very far for him to any cover. So he is really exposed here, which means you can easily, just like you do, step into the bubble here. Because you know, when he jumps in here, everyone is going to start shooting him. Naturally, the thing that he's going to do is going to try and hide. But if you step in and you pull him towards yourself, just so he's closer to you and further away from cover, that will potentially give you time to break the bubble and kill him. Imagine that he is here. Where could you pull to still secure the kill?
Or maybe right here to the wall.
Exactly, right? Especially if you pull like over here, you should still be able to get him, and you're also pulling him in the air. Remember, he has no mobility skills, so not only are you pulling him further away from cover, you're also pulling him in the air. So there's going to be a bit of fall time.
For the final tip, learn when to hold vertically or laterally.
Synergize with an ally, halt them vertically. Big hitbox, halt them vertically. Small hitbox, need to land headshots, halt them into the ground. Anything else, punishing positioning, halt them laterally.
Orisa's second ability, Invincible, makes Orisa turn gold, reducing damage taken by 40%, lasting 4 seconds, and is on a 10-second cooldown. Orisa is also immune to crowd control and stun effects, and she can escape Zarya's Grav and Sigma's Flux. There's not much to this other than to not waste it because of how powerful it is. Similar with Ina's Sleep Dart. In lower ranks, You can use Fortify in between shield cooldown, however, this shouldn't be done as you go higher up, as this can be the cue for the enemy team to use their abilities such as Flux to punish you. Other than that, save it to prevent or relay pressure from the enemy team, or to block a bunch of telegraph stuns around you. Orisa's third ability, Barrier Boi V2. Makes Orisa fire a stationary barrier at 25 meters per second with 600 health, a 20-second duration, and 10-second cooldown. There are 3 key pillars with Orisa Shield: angling, timing, and placement. Starting with the former, you want to be angling your shield to cover gaps where the enemy can have LOS to your teammates.
You don't care if there's a bit of an opening here, but there can absolutely not be an opening here. Because when the shield is breaking, if someone is falling back, even without the shield breaking, maybe someone sneaks in an arrow or a right click or something else, right? So this gap you don't want, right?
On to the most complex of the 3, timing. StormCrowProductions explains in a 4.5k double shield mirror scrim to why you need to shield at the engagement, and not before.
Remove this archetype that Orisa just places shields off of cooldown and spams the enemy team. That's not how Orisa is played. I legitimately want you to think of Orisa shield like Monkey Bubble. If you were Monkey right here, would you commit Bubble on this corner right here? No, why? Because the enemy team's gonna sit AFK, you're gonna break your bubble, and they're gonna push out and murder you. When the enemy team commits, or your team is ready to commit, then you throw shield. If you don't, then don't play shield. Is the enemy team committing? No. You have nothing but a little bit of irrelevant Sigma spam coming around this corner. You don't need a shield to deal with the Sigma. You're going to stand right here or right here. You're going to shoot the Sigma. Then as soon as the enemy team turns the corner and pushes into you, they're going to have to shield, otherwise the wood is going to blow their heads off. And when they shield, you're also going to shield, and you can even push into them. You see that the enemy Orisa's places a shield that you can break without having to use your own shield, then just spam it, and then walk forward and place your own shield, and they have to back off.
There is a caveat to this, however. Pre-shielding before a fight begins is often viable, which is done by either shielding 10 seconds before the team fight starts, or shooting a shield in the air to then effectively shorten the cooldown. Moving on to the most common mistake with Orisa's shield placement. This is simply shielding so that you don't have the enemy team walk straight past it, especially against a brawl comp.
This is a very middle of the road shield because it's very easily circumvented. You know, as you can see already, people are walked around the side. This Reinhardt can just walk past it, and generally it's not achieving a tremendous amount.
Like we talked about the enemy team's composition, they're a very short range composition, so we would like to place a shield where we can still force point pressure maybe from right here, but to where there's more of a distance from the angles where the enemy team's going to be coming. You know, the Ryan, like you said, doesn't just immediately walk through and start swinging on top of us, or that the ball doesn't just immediately pile drive us from the high ground up here, or the Doomfist doesn't just turn a corner and punch us immediately. The Reaper doesn't just turn a corner and walk through the shield and shoot us in the face. Like there is some sort of distance that's playing closer to how fast or slow that we want to play this fight. And like you said, they turn the corner, they throw down the shield, but the shield does almost absolutely nothing.
Building on this idea, if you can open the angle, you want to shield aggressively to punish a bad stabilization, as Jayne elaborate on here.
So you could have just achieved the same thing with this halt by walking 2 steps to the left and just spamming the Reinhardt. And that was a place to stabilize, because you can open the angle. Basic cornering theory: person A is standing close to a corner, person B is standing away from a corner. Both people have an advantage, but they are different advantages. What are they? So A has the opportunity to open the angle. So if I was to draw this corner as the pivot point, we're talking about the distance between A and B. So they are now at a fixed distance from one another. If A moves in this direction at 5 meters per second or something like that, B would have to move inwards. It's, for example, like 10 meters per second to remain behind cover from the perspective of A. A can dictate the engagement. They can open or close the angle to engage or disengage on B at their leisure. That is A's advantage. B's advantage, being farther away from the corner, is that they have better crosshair placement, they see more of the opponent, and they see the opponent earlier if they try to open the angle.
Lastly, there are set shields which you can shoot in the air to make them land at a certain place. I recommend checking out this video in the description if you want to learn these set shields. Orisa's ult, Bongo, makes a 25 meter beam, providing a 50% damage boost to your entire team, lasting up to 15 seconds, with a physical health pool of 200. Firstly, the most basic but important tip is to bongo around a corner to provide you line of sight, but to also deny it to the enemy team. Secondly, You can use Bongo early to charge your team's ultimates, which could win the fight in the long run.
If you had taken that fight earlier and moved up to the payload and died there, and then used your supercharger on the recontest, you would have had ult economy, your supercharger would have charged the ultimates of the rest of your team after you won that fight, and then moving into the third fight, you would have ult economy, you would have won that fight, and then on the fourth, things would have been even. So if you had, with your team, moved up forward, died there, and gotten a second fight, you would have gotten 2 more fights after that based on your actions. So instead of fighting 4 fights on Hollywood 3rd, you fought and lost 1.
Thirdly, use Bongo to apply high pressure if the enemy team commit a push against a straight path. This is most useful against brawl comps in order to break shield before the brawl occurs. Fourthly, as Jayne explains here, you can use shield Bongo by itself, especially with Orisa being less dependent upon her shield after the shield rework.
Nobody really needs a shield when you've got a team-wide nano boost. What I like to do is basically drop the supercharger way back, shield the supercharger, and then if I don't need to protect this, I'll just move forward. So my entire team, as long as they stay in range of the supercharger, every second that passes, they're just going to be straight up outvaluing the team. Your team doesn't really even need your shield to win a supercharger fight.
Lastly, you may want to immediately Bongo after you place shield, as Mineral further explains here.
Bongos. No one can shoot your bongos except for the tanks. You still have 900 HP shield. Obviously, it's probably gonna go down after that, but it relieves a ton of pressure.
This is primarily for when you are down a player, and you need to win the fight quickly, as you won't win the battle of attrition. Onto the penultimate section of the guide, positioning and rotations. Starting off with the latter, you can see Contenders Trials Team Incipients effectively rotate against goats to keep the distance on Hollywood first point. Moreover, Jayne goes to explain how and where to rotate against dive.
You on Orisa are right here. The dive tanks have moved up behind Lighthouse over here, and then we've got a McCree here, and we'll say like Farah's hanging around here. Do you rotate to 3, 1, or 4? You would go to 1. So you initially said 3 because you wanted to get out the pick on the McCree here. Is picking the McCree your primary win condition? No, it's not. What is your primary win condition when you're playing Orisa against dive? How do you win the game? You win the game by capping the point and getting to 100% first. What you're effectively playing is called anti-dive. It's not counter-dive, that's a version of playing dive. You're playing anti-dive. You want to make it as difficult for the opponent to execute a dive, which is their only win condition, and when they do execute it, you punish and kill them. And if they don't execute a dive, then you will slowly just cap the point and gain percentage until they are forced to either contest or lose the game. So why do we move to 1? Make it as hard as possible for them to dive and make sure that we're not losing resources. Because if they're able to bleed us from resources while we can't fight back, then they're going to be dive, and with all us at full health and with them not having to have had used any cooldowns to actually posture, then we're going to die. Now, what about this McCree presents an opportunity to you? So who's going to win? A McCree with an Orisa shield or a McCree? A McCree with an Orisa shield. So why do you need to care about the McCree? And if you do care about the McCree, is the Lucio on the opposing team sitting with the McCree? He's with the tanks. So just run him over like a truck. You either make him useless or you speed onto him.
Lastly, considering your general position, you want to play corners and have enough space to kite away and poke down brawl or dive comps before they can use their cooldowns on top of you. As usual, ending off with frontline tank synergies. Orisa D.Va. This duo is quite versatile, providing point pressure and high ground contests simultaneously. D.Va can also peel if needed, and whilst not common, pull bomb can be performed. However, this is simply an outdated combo due to Sigma Orisa, even if these experimental changes go through. Orisa Reinhardt, high amount of cover, and in combination with a BAP, you can pull off the Halt plus Fire Strike plus Matrix combo. However, Shatter is simply too weak and inconsistent, alongside having no poke damage, and the inability to swing or cover ground on wide maps. Orisa Hog. This duo is the most outdated in the game, as Sigma just has more defensive utility than Hog. However, pull hook can still be performed, with whole Hog being a great answer to Nano Blade. The damage is highly present. However, if Hog isn't hitting hooks, he may as well be picking Sigma. Orisa Winston. Whilst Jump Pack Halt is some synergy, there are much more efficient combos, alongside Winston's inability to dive the backline without feeding due to Orisa's static nature. Soft flanks and soft engages are by far your Winston's best bet, but Sigma may be better in poke. Orisa Ball. This tank duo has the highest amount of individual sustainability in the game, alongside synergy such as pull slam or pull mines. The crowd control from either character can also deny a dive from the Winston. However, friendly supports may be left unattended. Orisa Zarya. This is quite a weak duo as both characters have different play styles, with Orisa being defensive and Zarya being aggressive. Hence it may be hard for Zarya to gain and retain energy. However, due to Orisa's point presence, Zarya can take off angles to anyone contesting you, on top of how powerful both your ultimates are. Orisa Sigma. Best for last. At the highest level, Orisa Sigma is played with the cooldown management of dive, the corner and positioning of brawl with the versatility and range damage of poke. Use your barrier at engagement, and don't be afraid to be aggressive with your shield. Well, that's it for the guide. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. If this video also helped to raise your IQ, be sure to share it with your friends to also raise theirs. Until next time.
You, big boy without big broom, big boy how I come through, big boy without